Why do you think you've been able to be so successful as a striker in this defense at Navy?
Well, I credit a lot of it to just the coaching staff being able to put me in good positions, and also just knowing that there's also a lot of room for even someone like myself to improve. A lot of room. Just come this off season, there'll be a lot of things I can kind of do better to make my game a little bit more diverse and become even more of a threat come the fall. But I get largely attributed it to the coaching staff.
And what is it like having the same coach this season for both the Raiders and the Strikers?
I think it's really cool because it allows you to become a more three-dimensional player. So it's just another piece of the puzzle that you know what another guy is doing across the field from you. You can kind of start to know where your help is. And then it's just cool being a larger group of guys, a lot of camaraderie, pretty cool scene within meetings and during practice.
And do you have more of a comfort level having been a starter in this system for a couple of years coming into your senior year?
There's definitely a lot of, I guess I wouldn't say swagger, but there's a lot of confidence, I guess, necessarily with the playbook, just allowing you to put your own little spin on a couple of stuff and then realize how you can benefit yourself in a lot of situations in order to impact the play. But it definitely does help. Also helps with the nurturing of the younger guys on the team and allowing them to also kind of learn from me, having been here.
Thanks, John.
Yep.
Bill Bergman.
John, what's Coach Coniglio like as a coach? We haven't gotten to talk to him too much.
Coach Coniglio is very energetic. He's somebody that demands perfection, and he's very active. I say he's one of probably the most active coach we have. Has to be kind of with the group dealing with both the Strikers and the Raiders, but he's very lively, and you appreciate that as a player because you have long days here, and he's always bringing the juice. So,
last week we were talking to Coach Newberry, and he mentioned that he wants to see all of the defensive starters returning last year be more vocal leaders out there on the field. Is this something you're working on this spring?
I think all of our class, just a lot of our class has left. Due to COVID, unforeseen circumstances, all that. So it's just a lot of us, the responsibility is being vocal, but also leading through actions as well. I think being vocal is kind of something that can come naturally along the way. Some people got to expand on their comfort zone, but it's definitely a thing that they want us to bring to the team and do a little bit more. And I think our class is doing very well with it. Just the whole team as a general is doing really well with it. Practices are very vocal, just a lot of energy, which is good.
Your senior class has had one of the more unique college experiences going through the pandemic. What's the chemistry like in your class in particular?
I'd say we're a very close knit group. We're talking almost every day. We got a group chat going. Very close with each other, hang out on the weekends all the time. It's very close. Even with the people who have departed, we're still very close with. So I think that'll help us a lot come fall, and then also help bring a lot of individuals along the way and just build that camaraderie I was talking about earlier.
Thank you.
Yep.
Wags.
Well, John, you said earlier that there is a lot of room for improvement, things you can do to up your game. Can you go into that a little more further? What are some of the things you're working on this spring? What has Coach Newberry and Coach Coniglio told you individually you can do better as a striker?
I think just for our unit in general, being with the Raiders and the Strikers now, we want to be a more disruptive unit, and we want to be able to cause a lot of chaos, whether that's backfield, the looks we're given, type of personnel we're seeing, how we can affect certain plays. It's just all being disruptive. So pass rush, being disruptive, and pass coverage as well, playing smart, things of that nature. I think I can improve largely on my pass rush and just the general knowledge of the defense more. I'm starting to learn a lot more personnel-based things that'll help me as the season goes, and how I can use those certain things to help my other attributes as a player.
So is it correct that you all are in the same meeting room with the Raiders, or does Coniglio meet with Raiders and then Strikers?
We're all in the same room together. I'd say there's about 10 plus of us, so maybe 12 between the Strikers and the Raiders.
So I have to admit, I back when Downing coached the ends and the Raiders, it seemed to make sense because they're similar positions in that they're pass rushers, and they also set the edge on running. But now that the strikers and Raiders together, how are those two positions similar? I mean, I've talked to Coach Newberry about why he decided to go this route with having Coniglio coach both, as opposed to having the person who coaches the ends coach the Raiders as well. But how do you see these two positions meshing? Why do they go together to the point that they can be coached together?
I think a lot of it has to just do with pass rush, and the Raiders a lot of hands-on, where the strikers kind of you need them a little bit more in pass heavy than necessarily need the Raider, but a lot of it can be applied to blitzing and then getting hands-on, things of that nature. And I think a lot of what the Raider does in zone pass coverage is also kind of applicable to what the striker does. So there's a lot of deviance in certain areas, but there's also a lot of similarities. So as the Raider improves their pass rush, we're doing a lot of the same things that help improve our pass rush. How they're dropping in coverage in certain zone looks is how we'll be dropping, same kind of technique, same looks, same kind of, I don't know, this like disruptive almost behavior that's like similar between the two. But it is similar to the end position. So I guess you could have meshed it in that way, but it also is very similar to the striker position with a little less coverage.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the striker will have to, on occasions, has to be in man pass coverage, where I don't think they would ever, hopefully not too often, ask the Raider to go in man coverage. Is that true?
Yeah, that's kind of one of the similar differences. The striker is a lot more run pass just because they're to the field, whereas a lot of constricted space into the boundaries, you don't really need to man up and match up as much. Whereas you have all that space of the field, you need kind of a body out there, somebody that'll man up on a receiver or a slot.
So talk about some of the other guys that are your position, because it's been changed. I mean, at one point, Tyler Fletcher was a striker. He no longer is. At one point, Cuevas Gillis was a striker. He's now a corner. So what else is going on? And I guess the big question is, do you feel any competition?
Of course, I feel competition going into every practice. You know, we got Xavier McDonald. He's a really good athletic player. Colin O'Connor just switched over recently from safety. He's kind of the same frame as me. We went to high school together. Sorry. He's very athletic too. Turner's injured right now, but he's listed, I think, second on the depth chart. He's athletic. There's a lot of competition there, and I think there'll be a lot of people come help fall, whether that's in the variety of the packages that are thrown our way. If there's differences, and if somebody's starting in that one or if I'm playing in another one, I think there's a lot of room for them to be able to play and for us to just compete and get better. But they're exceptional athletes too, and they come to practice every day and they work hard. So, but yeah, there has been a lot of changes, but I'm excited with who is there right now, and then they're also very good athletes.
Thanks.
All right, I'll make another trip around. Scott Wyckoff.
John, what do you like best about the spring practice? You don't have games to look forward to. You're going for a couple of weeks. What is it that makes spring practice for you guys that you guys like?
Well, I'd say the thing I like most about the spring practice is probably because this will probably be my first full spring practice without an interruption in between or a little COVID break. So it's kind of just cool to have that like full experience and then go after it with your brothers first and foremost. And then just the aspect of competition that you're still getting. It doesn't have to be necessarily game but it is game repetitions, and kind of allows you to be able to see into the eyes of Air Force, Army, how they're going to play certain options, chances. It helps you for the future, and also just helps you to build that competition aspect, which is super important for any team.
And as you head towards your senior year, what's it been like playing so close to home? Has it lived up to your expectations?
It's probably exceeded it a little bit. It's very cool playing in the Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium. And I love just the atmosphere going into games, playing in front of crowds, and even just the atmosphere in the AAC, just going to different venues and playing in front of, different fans in different states. It's been awesome.
Thanks.
Phil Bergman.
John, did you grow up a Navy fan?
I actually had two parents that went to Maryland, so it was I was kind of a Terrapin fan growing up, but I'm a Navy fan now. So that's all that matters.
Reading your bio, I see you have a twin brother. What's he up to? And also just what's that like for you to balance life and talk with a twin about what it's like to go to college now, but you at a service academy and him not?
Yeah, he actually followed my parents and is going to go to University of Maryland. He's at community college right now, but he's going to go come fall. But it's really cool just to share that. Obviously, you grow up with somebody your whole life. He's also a pretty good athlete, I'd say. I'm not going to give him the one up and say he's a better athlete, but he's a pretty good athlete too. And it's just like been attached at the hip. He's kind of like my right hand man. And it's really cool just to like let him know what I'm going through, and he lets me know what he's going through. And I see him on the weekends, and he's my best friend. So
Thank you.
Wags, take us out.
Well, I'd like to hear a little bit about how the offense looks. I know you haven't had a lot of practices, but I'm sure at this point you've gone against the offense in live situations. You have far more experience of returning players that have seen playing time than the offense. The offense is filling some holes, new offensive linemen, some new players at other positions. Is defense dominating, or what do you see out of the offense? Are they challenging you?
I'd say it's kind of hard to tell in spring ball because, you're putting a lot of people in who necessarily haven't seen the option on the defense when we talk younger. And then you have a lot of people on the offensive front who are filling in for people who are injured right now or necessarily didn't have that experience come in the fall. So everybody's kind of learning at the same time. So offense might get one big play and then defense might get a couple of big plays after. And the offense is like, well, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing here. It's the same thing that applies to the defense, kind of that confusion. I do think they're a lot more aggressive, and there's kind of like a demeanor shift. I think Ty has taken up a big leadership role this year, and a lot of the young slot backs too. And they're very dynamic players. So we're seeing a lot of that in the spring ball, but I'd say it's pretty even keel between offense and defense.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about, Ty. I mean, obviously we talked to him and he gained a lot of experience and confidence last year, especially with how things ended. And I was going to ask, does he look like he's more in control of the offense? And I know on another note, one of the things that they wanted the defense to do this year was change up fronts and looks to try to confuse Ty, because Ty has to learn how to recognize defenses and make checks at the line of scrimmage. What are you all doing that? Is Coach Newberry kind of throwing the kitchen sink at him to see what he can process? And how does Ty look in that regard?
Yeah, Coach New is throwing a lot of different defenses, necessarily defenses that we wouldn't use against option personnel necessarily, just so that, it helps us, but it also allows the offense to get different looks in certain formations. A lot of like our base, like offensive looks that we might use against a team like Houston, we're throwing at our offense this spring ball just so that they're getting used to that stuff. But I have seen a huge change since last spring ball or even last season. And Ty, his demeanor is much more demanding, and he's coming almost full circle, a lot more energy, and that elevates all the guys around him. It's kind of fun to see. The offense is kind of much more lively than probably any time I've been here, which is also exciting. I think it helps a lot of the younger guys too.
How do you like coaching the Strikers and Raiders together, and why do you think it's a benefit to have the same person at that coaching position?
Well, I love it. Kind of after we did some off-season discussion, talking with Coach Newberry, having the opportunity to coach both, they're two guys that have extremely versatile skill sets. We want to have guys that can play out in space. We want to have guys that can blitz well. And do some different things there. So we're kind of taking the Raider away from the D line and making him more of a hybrid, versatile player, which is very similar to our striker. So we felt like putting those two guys in the same room would give them the opportunity to kind of develop similar skill sets and really accentuate some of the skills that they have.
Talking about skill sets, what makes John Marshall have the good skill set to fit at striker?
So we talk about John Marshall. He's got great length. He's a tremendous athlete, was a really good basketball player. He's really seasoned. I mean, he's done a lot of different things here. But just in regards to, his ability to really cover and play out in space, also his ability to blitz and get to the quarterback is something that makes him a special player for us.
And what skill set does Nick Straw have that's conducive to being a good Raider?
So Nick Straw, he's an extremely physical player, which is what you need at Raider. But the one thing that he certainly shows off is his ability to play out in space. He's done a really nice job of that this spring. We continue to work on that and develop those different tools. And again, just having those two guys in the same room has really been beneficial to kind of not only teaching them how to drop and doing some different things that maybe they had typically had done, but really just teaching them the entirety of the defense and how all the pieces work together.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Phil Bergman.
Coach, before you came to Navy, how much did you know about the striker and Raider positions, and what's it been like learning them?
I'll tell you what, I feel like the striker and the Raider position really accentuate my coaching history. I've coached defensive line. When I was at Rhode Island, I coached outside linebackers, which is really striker and Raider when I was at Kent State. And then obviously being in Coach Newberry's system here this past year and being in the past, I feel like it's really been something that I've been fired up about. So it's really just kind of me adjusting, but really putting, I guess, my coaching touch on having the ability to coach those guys and have a little bit of experience in both.
We asked John Marshall about you, and he called you energetic, active, demands perfection. Are there any other descriptors that you'd agree with?
You know what? I'm extremely impatient. I told those guys that today. I want to see, I'm just really excited about the development. Like I want to be a developer of talent. The one thing that as we move through spring ball, I want to see those guys be, I call us the disruptors. Like we should be the most disruptive guys on defense. The reason for that is because I feel like we got a very versatile skill set. We should be able to drop in coverage, blitz, rush the passer, do all those different types of things. So just in regards to being able to develop, and the one thing I talked to him again about today was like, hey, the one thing that we have to do a good job of, because I put us all in a group together, I have to do a better job of making practice repetition game reality. Like the things that we're doing in individual need to show up in our game situations or our good on good situations. So just extremely competitive, want to see those guys exceed expectations and be as good as they can be.
And lastly, you did a lot with the special teams units last year. How was that time beneficial for now that you're translating to a different group on the defensive side?
I've just always had like a love for special teams. I've always felt like you can change games on special teams and have had some success with that. But I think the coolest thing is I have relationships with the guys that I'm currently coaching because of special teams, because of their investment in special teams. And I feel like that's really done a nice job of kind of walking me into the position that I'm currently in.
Thank you.
Wags.
Good to see you, Coach.
Good to see you.
So I think you alluded to what I've been trying to drive at now in discussions with Coach Newberry, and I also just asked John Marshall the same thing, but I think you just said it. You're changing the Raider position. It's not going to be the exact same position in terms of assignments, correct?
You know what? I would say it's the same defense, but hopefully we develop a skill set to give those guys the opportunity to maybe do a little bit more than they have in the past.
Right. Well, can you expand on that? Because obviously the Raiders were grouped with the defensive ends because their responsibilities were more closely aligned. They were setting the edge and on the run. They were asked to pass rush. So there was a reason why Coach Downing coached both of those positions. Is that, altering a little bit? Are they going to be dropping in coverage more? And obviously the Raider, when there was a certain defense that Coach Newberry employed last year that took the Raider off the field and replaced him with a different, more striker type player. Is this designed maybe looking at that the Raider maybe is not the best, the way it was previously designed was not best fit for the opponents you're playing?
You know what? I would say those are all some valid points. I would say the one thing that putting the Raider and the striker together has done is that's going to give those guys to kind of develop in a similar way because there are a lot of similarities. Like I said, they both blitz. They're both going to be dropping into coverage. It gives the Raider kind of walks them a step away from the defensive line and helps them kind of understand all the pieces and the X's and O's of exactly where everybody fits, which we feel like can make those guys better and more aware. But for the most part, the Raiders going to be an extremely similar position. But like I said, we're also going to have the ability to, develop a skill set that's more similar to a striker than maybe a defensive end, which we feel like is going to help them develop maybe in a pass dropping situation. And then, the striker is going to have the ability to develop in a similar way as the Raider, being able to blitz, just like a Raider is going to have to be able to rush the passer.
You're muted, Wags. Wags, you're muted.
Sorry about that. So on that note, obviously you have two guys who would qualify as returning starters in Nick Strahl and John Marshall. Can you speak individually about each of those two, what you want to see them improve? John Marshall just talked about there's a lot of room for improvement in his game. I think Nicholas has said the same thing when we spoke to him, but how do you, when you look at each of those guys in the cut-ups from last season, what did you tell, and Coach Newberry, I'm sure, was also involved with this, what did you tell Nick Strahl and John Marshall, this is what you need to do better?
Talking to both of those guys, I mean, there's certainly a ton of things that we can improve upon, and that's what we do every single offseason. Like, let's take a hard look at this. What can we do better? How can we improve? Where it starts with Nick, he's an extremely physical player. And the one thing I want to start off by saying is these guys are extremely coachable. Like, you say something once, it shows up on tape. So that's the thing that I'm most excited about coaching these guys. But for Nick, we certainly have to continue to improve his pass drops and his ability to play in coverage. We're trying to day to day work on an improvement on him having the ability to rush the passer. The thing I tell the Raider all the time is, listen, like, you may not be a part of the front anymore, but when your number is called on 3rd and 10, you should be the guy sacking the quarterback. Like, we're a hybrid outside linebacker. I mean, the guys you think about in the NFL that are rushing the passer, some of the best guys are considered outside linebackers. So continue to develop that way and really being more of a what we call a 3D player. Like, he needs to know what the group around him is doing, what the entirety of the defense is doing, understanding and knowing where his help is in the defense, making sure when we try to make tackles or when we're making tackles, we're putting him on our leverage shoulder and forcing him to our help. Good defense is knowing where your help is. So really just tying all those things together for Nick, because again, he's got a lot of tools. The thing that is most impressive about him, like I said before, is his physicality. He plays extremely physical on the line of scrimmage. He does a nice job using his hands. He's a heavy-handed guy. And then when we talk about John, I mean, John's just a super athlete. Like I said before, he was a basketball player, and he's just got a ton of tools. Really, the one thing that I want to continue to impress upon him is how vital his eyes are, making sure that he understands where his eyes are every snap when he's blitzing, who he's got to defeat, how he gets to the quarterback, still continuing to teach him some different ways to get to the passer when he comes from depth, when he's got to beat people in space, if he's beating a back or an offensive tackle, and then some things on how we can tie the defense together. Like, if you rush off the edge or if you win inside, can I overlap to the next gap? And again, just trying to help us be more aware, be better football players so that we can have more production as a collective unit.
You're muted, Wags.
I know I keep forgetting. So with regard to depth at those positions, so you look at Max Sandlin and Jordan Sanders were on the depth chart to start spring ball at Raider. Turner Stepp and Xavier McDonald were on the depth chart at striker, but we just heard from John Marshall that Colin O'Connor has moved over there to striker because Turner's not practicing. I mean, at present, Strahl and Marshall have lots of experience, but really not many other players. I guess Xavier a little bit, but not a lot of playing experience, game experience behind either of those guys.
Yeah, I would say that's the most exciting part for me, just the development of those young guys. Jordan Sanders, we're extremely excited about what he's going to be able to offer and what he's going to be able to add to the room. Max Sandlin's done a phenomenal job. guys like Nas Rogers and DJ Donovan also are guys that we're excited about, that we continue to work with and try to see more out of. And then, at striker, I think Colin's done a good job. He came over recently, and he, pretty adaptive coming from safety, having a pretty good knowledge base of exactly what we're doing on defense, but did a nice job just in regards to getting lined up, being able to execute. But, the one thing I tell our guys all the time is it's my job to give them confidence. They need to know what they need to do, how they need to do it. They got to make sure that they understand and they're tuned in and feel capable of a good result. So if we can get that done, I'm excited and I'm confident that we'll have a really solid foundation and really good depth in my room.
All right, great. Thanks.
All right, we'll make another trip around. Scott Wyckoff.
Coach, all coaches are unique, and especially when you're in an assistant's role working with a head coach. What makes Coach Niumatalolo so unique as a head coach for you to work with?
Well, the basis of our program is on love. I think the one thing that is so phenomenal about him is that he loves and he takes care of his assistants. He's a phenomenal leader. Just the way that he leads, the way that he invests in his coaches, and he's extremely aware and willing to do whatever it takes to help us be successful. So I just think the charisma that he has, the way he goes about handling and managing our football team, and just the overall love that he shows to our players and our coaching staff is second to none. So love working for him.
And what stands out to you about Coach Newberry?
A lot of things. I mean, not only are we, like I've spoken in the past about being really good friends outside of football, but he's extremely creative. We think very similarly in the way of, trying to find advantages in a bunch of different ways. He's an excellent teacher, helps our guys. Like, he's been bouncing around some of the meeting rooms, and he always comes in and always adds a ton of great input and advice for our guys so that we can execute at a higher level. And then again, just the implementation and the work that he does with our staff, and helping us become better coaches. I mean, again, I just think all that stuff is second to none. He's a phenomenal coach, and an even better person.
Thanks a lot, Coach.
Right on.
Bill Bergman.
Coach, could you just go into a little detail about your relationship with Coach Newberry, how long you guys have known each other, things like that?
Yeah, so me and Coach Newberry met each other. My first job, I was a graduate assistant at Kent State, and I went to Northern Michigan as the defensive line coach about 10, 11 years ago. And we always joke around about back when we were at Northern Michigan, and he was in, I think he was about 35, but he was in his prime of athletic career in relationship to me, because he was beating me one-on-one in the basketball court pretty consistently. So that was like kind of where our whole friendship started, not only on the football field coaching, but also as buddies on the basketball court in the rec center at Northern Michigan. But we've just stayed in touch. My wife knows his wife really well, and just the overall connection and friendship that we've had. It's like anything else, just something that's kind of carried on. And again, I talk about all the time, like, just associate yourself with good people who work really hard, and Coach Newberry is, the best there is.
And you have a college roommate that's done pretty well in coaching too. What's it like to pick Coach McVay's brain and develop that relationship still over the years?
It's great. It's been really cool. The one thing that I tell everybody, because they're like, "Oh man, Sean McVay was your roommate," and I just say, he's just one of us. He works hard. He's a good guy. Extremely competitive. Loves to work, loves his players. So I just say it all the time, man. He's one of us. But yeah, certainly a guy that I love touching base with and picking his brain on some certain football things.
Thank you.
Wags, take us out.
Well, so obviously you went from last year not coaching a position to now coaching two positions and also handling special teams. Are you worried that you're spreading yourself a little too thin?
I'll be honest with you, I've never been more fired up. Like, if I could draw up exactly what I would want to be doing right now, it's what I'm doing. It's coaching the guys I coach, the outside linebackers. I feel like that it's kind of a part of my skill set. I love coaching on special teams, and I just love finding advantages. So I don't feel spread too thin. And really, the thing I say all the time is like, this is what I signed up for. So if I do feel spread too thin, that means I just got to work harder, work longer, do whatever it takes so that I can invest and serve my players and our team the best way that I can.
Well, on that note, obviously there were, for a good part of last season, special teams was a liability, but I do feel that my recollection is that in the last few games, special teams became a positive, and some good things happened on special teams and enabled Navy to win those battles. What do you feel like I don't think people understand how important special teams are, the average fan, but can you talk about that a little bit, making sure special teams is no more mistakes, no muff snaps, and all the things that we saw happen last year that led to issues?
Yeah, I think some of that stuff we just had to continue to work through. Got an unbelievable coaching staff here, and we kind of put all of our brains together to find the best way moving forward on the special teams realm. But again, it's something that moving forward, we feel like we're going to have a huge advantage as we continue to evolve and find the best ways to do things. I know all the guys that are coaching special teams here are taking some initiative just in regards to find some better things, scout some other teams, and then put some stuff on paper so that we can be as successful as we want to be on special teams in the coming season.